right, and there's nobody that's going to know anything for a period of time. Let me summarize today's announcement for our Spanish-speaking New Yorkers. Le pedimos a todos los neoyorqueños que se mantengan informados sobre el huracán Sandy, llamando al 311 o visitando al nyc.gov. Es probable que veamos lluvias y vientos fuertes y algunas áreas pueden ser inundadas. And on that note, I'll be happy to take some questions, sir.
Mayor, can we ask you first of all, you mentioned about Zone A, and that's the concern area. I know no evacuation or anything like that yet. But roughly how many New Yorkers live in Zone A? And if you could compare this storm versus Irene, because you had to evacuate.
We have no idea whether it's going to be the same as Irene, and the number of people that live in these areas. If you had to guess, what's the number?
It's about 375,000.
375,000 people.
How early would you have to make a decision, you think, ahead of the storm?
Well, the ones we worry about are those where we have to do the evacuation, so people in seniors' homes or disabilities facilities or hospitals. Tom Frieden has been working with them. We talked to all of them. We would use city buses to take people out. And one of the problems you have is the city's buses have to be moved out of harm's way before the storm hits. Same thing with subway trains. And so you have to make a decision earlier, but it's not time to do that yet. In terms of the general public, we think we'll have enough time to let people know, and they'll have to use public transportation or drive. The thing that we worry about the most is that people decide not to listen to the order to evacuate, and then later on find themselves in harm's way, and then our police and fire department have to put their lives on the line to get people out. Yes, miss.
Is there a particular rubric that you use to determine whether...
I can bear you, I'm sorry.
Sorry, is there a particular rubric that you use in order to determine whether to evacuate, like that needs to be predicting X number of...
It is, you'd rather be safe than sorry. On the other hand, you can't evacuate every time, and you don't want to, it's inconvenient for people and even dangerous for some people to move. So there's two sides to it, but at the moment, we do not think that it's necessary to make that decision right now. Yes, sir.
Is there, Mr. Mayor, Rich Lamb, WCBS, is there a concern that the water may rise above the seawall in Battery Park City and maybe flood the tunnel?
It's just much too early. It does not look like that at the moment, but anything can happen. What I want to stress is we are so far away from the main event that you just don't know. If it hits right on, it's much more likely than if it hits overland on either side, because then the winds die down and you have a lot less flooding. Yes, I'm trying to get... Just identify yourself, we're trying.
The Associated Press. Do you worry at all that the experience of Irene, which fortunately was not quite as bad as might have been expected, could make people complacent or shrug this off?
You know, I don't wish that the storm is bad. I wish that it is not bad. That may be a corollary effect, that people think you're crying wolf. But we don't do this lightly. We're trying to be balanced and not too early worry people, but common sense says you should start taking precautions. Get ready just in case. This is a potentially dangerous storm. There are some forecasts that say it is going to weaken. Some forecasts that say it's going to strengthen. Some forecasts that say it's going to hit south of us or north of us or on us. Nobody really knows. And if if we have to make a mistake, we would rather make a mistake on being cautious. That's our obligation. Yes, sir.
You know, last year there was that big problem in the Bull's Head neighborhood of Staten Island, and I know your administration has taken steps to try to fix that going forward, but my memory was that it was going to take several years to get all those improvements. Is there anything that the city's doing now to...
We don't have time to do major construction projects between now and next week. We've been working on that. It is a long-term project. There are parts of the city where the sewer system was just never constructed to carry away enough water, and if you get in those low-lying areas, and that's we just have to learn to live with. Keep in mind the people that live there understand that. They've been dealing with this. Maybe they're not happy about it, but they know what to do, and they should take precautions like everybody else. Yes, sir.
Are there any instructions, as of yet, should go to work Monday or whether they...
We'll let you know. Everybody should plan to go to school and plan to go to work.
And do you know of any meetings or government events or other kinds of things that have been postponed or being maybe discussed at this point?
The only thing that we've postponed is Sunday's test for the high schools that you need, I think.
We'll have an update at some point about Monday's council meeting.
Okay.
That relates also to what the
Is
city...
that good or bad?
I heard something, but I don't know. It's just a chattering annoyance on my side. But that relates to the City Planning Commission and whether they're going to stay on their schedule. So that could change, and we will let folks know.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, just quickly, so maybe in Kansas, public transportation will continue working throughout?
No.
Or will they be
It depends on the storm. If it's a regular rainy day, it'll certainly continue to work. The MTA works rain or shine. If the storm gets to be so significant that buses, because of their size, run a risk of being pushed by a wind, 39 miles an hour is the wind they use, or if there's a danger of trains getting stalled in a low-lying area where if they got flooded, they would be out of commission for days, weeks, months, they will... We don't know when. You want specificity, and I keep trying to tell you. Unfortunately or fortunately, we cannot tell. At the moment, certainly during tomorrow, you can expect to have full mass transit. If we think you should be leaving, evacuating low-lying areas, we urge you to do so as soon as you hear it, because there is a possibility that the MTA at some point would have to stop serving, remove their buses and trains, and that would make it incumbent on you to find another ways of transportation, and some people don't have cars. Yes.
Are there any steps that the city is taking right now, just gathering sand, to prevent flooding, clearing storm drains, anything like that?
Yes, I said we've been clearing storm drains for a week and ask everybody to go out, take a look at the storm drain at your corner or in front of your house. Sand is not going to, this is not a snowstorm, it's not going to help us at all, and it's not a place to go and sandbag. We don't have that kind of flooding. You would have, pardon?
Preparing shelters.
We are working on making sure that if we have to evacuate people, we have 65-odd shelters, which will be fully stocked and available. But at this point, there's no reason to have anybody go, but if it gets to that, we are doing everything that we can to be prepared. But at the moment, this storm could be a time when we say, oh, boy, it's raining, and nothing more. Let's hope that's the case. Yes, sir.
Do you have any kind of probability from meteorologists about where the most likely scenario?
Yes, there's 20 of them, and everyone thinks that they have the right track.
No, you don't have problems.
You could take the average of them, although I don't know why an average in this case would really give you any better data. These storms are whenever weather hits water or land or a mountain range, it is much more unpredictable than if it goes over the water or over a flat plain state. We live on the shore, and that's why forecasting weather is very difficult to do. The storms pick up moisture from the water in either heat or cold, or lack of heat, depending on the time of the year and the temperature. It is likely to hit someplace between Virginia and Massachusetts. But that is, if it's 50 miles away from us or 100 miles away from us, that's like it didn't get here. And so you're asking a question where you have broad possibilities and you want specificity that doesn't exist. So, yes, Miss.
How long does it take for the MTA, from the time they decide to suspend subway service, how long does it take them before that actually?
Nobody's really sure, because some things can get done very quickly, some things take time. But you're talking 8 or 12 hours, a long time.
So the storm is theoretically hitting Sunday night, they have to make that decision.
Yeah, the storm does not look like it would get here before sometime on Monday. There are estimates Monday morning, Monday night, or something like that. But the MTA has to be able to remove their equipment before it gets damaged, because if it gets damaged, then they can't provide service later on. And they will make a considered judgment looking at the radar and the maps and talking to the weather people, and then they'll try to do it. Well, if they have to err, they're probably going to have to err on the side of being a little bit too cautious, because if, God forbid, they make a mistake on the other side and the storm speeds up, then we would not have any mass transit for a long time. Last question.
Colby Hamilton, WNYC. Have you spoken to the governor about this, and what is the state coordinating with the city at all?
Yeah, the governor's people have been in all our meetings. The MTA is a state agency. I've personally talked to the governor, you know, if you take a look, we talked about it because Irene, we thought would be a disaster for our city, and we had virtually no damage, but upstate was very badly hurt. And he's cognizant of that, and they're focusing their efforts. I don't know whether he put out a order to mobilize or give them authority to mobilize the National Guard, but he and I had talked about it, and I don't know what he finally decided on that. I haven't talked to him in 3 or 4 hours. But his people are all part of this, and you know, the coordination is everything that you would ask for. And once again, it's you want to understand this is a very dangerous storm. You should pay attention to the various media outlets, including nyc.gov and 311, and hopefully tomorrow night we'll have better news that it's likely to go someplace else, but even then it can change at the last minute. It's just, that's the way the weather is. In the meantime, tomorrow it should be fine. Cloudy and showers, I think, is the forecast, but you should be able to go about your business. As I said, our school tests for the schools we need tests to get into will go on tomorrow, so we're confident about the weather tomorrow. Sunday, all bets are off, but we'll make a bet on Sunday night and tell you what that is. Thank you very much.
And we've just been listening to Mayor Bloomberg live from City Hall. In his words, trying to stay balanced in his warnings to New Yorkers about Hurricane Sandy. Here's what he said that is important to New Yorkers right now. If you have a child who is planning on taking the specialized high school test on Saturday, that test is still on. But if they planned on taking it on Sunday, that has been rescheduled for November 18th. Also, right now, there are no mandatory, no voluntary evacuation orders in place for the 375,000 New Yorkers who live in Zone A. Places like Coney Island, places like the Shore and Staten Island, City Island, all the Rockaways, basically all the low-lying areas. We also want to let you know that we're waiting on a press conference from the governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo. He will be live from Hop Hog, Long Island in Suffolk County, talking about what the state is doing. Both the state and the city have activated their emergency operations center. But right now, Mayor Bloomberg, his tone was that we need to be more watchful than anything else, because right now there are so many unknowns. But we do know some things. We do know that Hurricane Sandy is headed for the East Coast. We will likely feel an impact at some point. How strong that impact, that's still the unknown. For more, let's go to Storm Team 4, Steve Villanueva, to give us the latest track and his thoughts on what some of the things the mayor said. Steve?
Well, thanks, Tom. It looks like the storm system is now a Category 1. It did weaken during the overnight hours. It's producing winds of 75 miles per hour, which barely makes it a hurricane. But we think it will stay as a Category 1 as it starts to move out to sea, just to the east of North Carolina. And we continue to think that it's going to make landfall sometime, probably Monday afternoon or Tuesday morning, right around the Delmarva Peninsula. But look at the size of the cone. So it could come ashore in Virginia or even across Connecticut or up into Massachusetts. Wind gusts will be very powerful with this storm system. Saturday night, we're going to start to see some wind gusts of 10 to 20 miles per hour. As we head into Sunday, wind gusts of 20 to 30, maybe even 40 miles per hour. Then later in the day, Sunday and Monday, we're going to start to see the winds increase anywhere from 20 to 40 to 50 miles per hour. And they're going to peak at about 70 miles per hour, especially south of the city. If the storm system comes ashore across the Delmarva and with the winds coming in at 75 miles per hour, all of this is in conjunction with the high tide on Monday, with the full moon on Monday. So high tide will be above average. So you add that into the mix, and we will likely see widespread coastal flooding along coastal New Jersey, which will be severe. Out on Long Island, anywhere from moderate to severe, and that will be the story into Connecticut as well. But once the storm system is ashore, we're going to start to see it die down. It's going to lose its characteristics. The winds will start to weaken. By the time we get to Tuesday night, we're still going to have gusty winds out there, but they're much weaker, anywhere from 30 to 50 as opposed from 50 to 70 miles per hour. rainfall totals will be pretty high. We're going to see rainfall totals anywhere from 4 to 6 inches of rain. And in some isolated spots, we could have rainfall totals up to 10 inches of rain. So not only is coastal flooding a concern with this storm system, inland flooding is a concern as well. When you get all that water at once, it has to go somewhere. It's going to go into your rivers, into your streams, and that's going to take some time. It won't happen right away, but we could see flooding days after the event. So even though the sun is shining, we could continue to see river flooding. That's something that we're going to have to watch over the next couple of days. Of course, we're going to have more. I'm working on the forecast with Janice. The newest models are coming in. We're going to have the latest coming up at 5 o'clock, so join us then. In the meantime, let's toss it over to Tom.
Steve, you know, one of the big things Mayor Bloomberg said was that during Tropical Storm Irene, the MTA made the unprecedented move of shutting down service. And the mayor said that if sustained winds are at 39 miles per hour, they will have partial or complete shutdown of service. Do you see the winds in any scenario getting to 39 miles per hour sustained winds in the coming days?
It all depends on where the storm system comes ashore. So if it's further to the south, our winds will be weaker. The strongest winds are around the center of the storm system. So if that's down by the Delmarva Peninsula, that's about 200 miles away. So yes, we will see gusts of 30 to 50 miles per hour, but the question is, will they be sustained? If the storm system comes across in central New Jersey, there's a likely higher, it's more likely for it to happen is what I'm trying to say. And if it comes across in New York, yeah, you can definitely guarantee winds of 30 to 70 miles per hour sustained. So again, it all depends on where the actual storm system comes ashore. If it pushes up towards the north, it's going to be much less of an intense storm system for us. If it pushes just to our south, the big concern for us will be coastal flooding. If it comes right on top of us, yeah, it is going to be pretty bad for everyone. But of course, we're going to be here. We're going to track the storm system. We're going to watch this thing right on through Tuesday and Wednesday when it finally starts to dissipate.
Yeah, we want to remind our viewers that we're waiting on a press conference from the governor of the state of New York, Andrew Cuomo, at any moment from Long Island. Once that happens, we will bring that to you live. We also want to reiterate some of the other things Mayor Bloomberg said during his press conference. One, as of this point, plan on heading to school on Monday, plan on heading to work right now. There are no city shutdowns at this moment. They plan on having another press conference the earliest Saturday afternoon, likely Saturday evening, depending on the track of the storm. At that point, they'll reassess what they exactly need to do. The Office of Emergency Management has been activated along with the Coastal Storm Plan. He also said if you have questions, the best thing you can do is call 311 or check nyc.gov. He also reminded, just like we have been doing the past few days, to make sure you have your go bag in case you live in Zone A, a low-lying area in the city of New York or on Long Island or in New Jersey, because you're going to be affected as well. A to-go bag, which basically has, you know, batteries, water, change of clothes, extra set of house keys and car keys in case you need to get out of town in a hurry, because depending on where this storm hits will depend if you need to evacuate if you live in one of those low-lying areas. Now, about an hour before Mayor Bloomberg spoke, Steve Villanueva sent an email out to our station talking about a European model. And one of the European models, the latest European model, actually had the storm forecast hitting near Atlantic City. If that is the case, and so far the European models have been pretty much on check, that could be devastating for the tri-state area. But again, it's still too early. I understand that we're waiting on Governor Cuomo still at the moment. We just got a heads up. It's going to be at any moment. We want to bring you some other information that we know around the tri-state. Here's what's happening in New Jersey at this moment right now. Cape May County has ordered voluntary evacuations today and Saturday for everyone living in Cape May County and those barrier islands. Then there will be mandatory evacuations on Sunday of people living in those barrier islands. Again, this can change, but that likely will probably stick because those barrier islands are just hanging out there in the Atlantic, and they are very susceptible to flooding and those heavy winds once Sandy comes ashore. Now, as we mentioned earlier, the MTA service to be shut off if sustained winds of 39 miles per hour hit New York City. Now, it's unclear if it'll be a partial or a complete shutdown like we saw with Tropical Storm Irene. And a lot of people said that was a smart move because when you shut down service, you can get some of those trains and buses into the areas they need to be protected, because if they're still out on the roads and those high winds come, power outages can really just knock out power all over the city, and that could be a problem. Long Island also suffered a lot during Tropical Storm Irene. Once it reached ashore, 550,000 people were without power, some of them more than a week. So that's why we're waiting to see what Governor Cuomo has to say about the preparedness in Long Island. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more on Hurricane Sandy. Stay with us. Today at 5 on News 4 New York, as Sandy approaches the tri-state, stay with News 4 for complete coverage.
I'm Storm Team 4 meteorologist Rafael Miranda. We're tracking a few possible...
Live from News 4 New York, this is a special report.
We continue to follow breaking news on Hurricane Sandy. Right now, the governor of the state of New York, Andrew Cuomo, is about to speak in Long Island. In Hop Hog, let's listen in.
We want to make sure we take every precaution possible. We don't want to overreact and spend resources we don't need to spend, but we do want to be prepared for any eventuality. We went through Hurricane Irene, Storm Lee last year in New York, so we have an idea of what kind of damage can be done, and we want to make sure we're prepared. With that in mind, we've been watching the latest weather forecasts, and we're going to declare a state of emergency in every county in the state, and also asking for a pre-disaster declaration, which gets us federal aid and assistance and allows us to put the National Guard on the ready. We'll continue to track the weather as it proceeds, and we'll adjust accordingly, but we want to make sure we're ready just in case. Again, there is no reason to panic. We have a lot of time, and we're prepared for any eventuality, but again, we'd rather err on the side of caution than not, and that's what we're doing.
What could Mr. and Mrs. Smith listening out there, do right now to make themselves more prepared?
Well, New Yorkers have had, unfortunately, a fair bit of experience with this. We went through Hurricane Irene last year, Storm Irene, and basically just run that videotape in your mind. Now, that storm, New York City prepared extensively. The damage was not in New York City, but we actually had extensive damage upstate New York and on Long Island. So just remember what we went through last year. It's common sense precaution. If you're a homeowner, take things around the yard and put them away. These are going to be high winds and rain are what we expect. So you don't want debris around the house. Travel plans should be adjusted accordingly. It would be a good idea if you're going shopping to get some extra supplies so you don't have to leave the house in the beginning of the week, next week. But it's common sense, and just remember what we went through last year and prepare accordingly.
What does an emergency declaration mean exactly in terms of preparation by you guys?
It allows us access to federal funding and allows us more flexibility as a state government. Also, primarily, we're going to have the National Guard on alert. In a situation like this, the National Guard is very helpful to the state in equipment, personnel power, et cetera, so they'll be on the ready.
With your discussions from Irene, with all the problems with the power companies, what's being done this time around to ensure that that doesn't happen again?
We're going to have a state, what's called the chairman of the Public Service Commission, a state official who will go to LIPA here on Long Island to monitor LIPA's response to the storm. There have been complaints in the past that there were down power lines for an inordinate amount of time on Long Island, and we want to make sure that doesn't happen again. We also had scheduled, ironically, a Homeland Security conference for Monday in Albany, a conference of first responders from all across the state to attend a conference and training on responding to an emergency. So these are the emergency responders from every county in the state. They were supposed to be in Albany on Monday for a conference. We're obviously going to cancel that conference because they should be in their home county preparing for the emergency. So it's an ironic circumstance, but we think, again, that's better to err on the side of caution. I was going to be doing some campaigning for the president out of state this weekend. I'm not going to be doing that. I'll be staying in state.
Where do you intend to monitor the storm, Governor?
I will be all over the state. I'll be primarily based out of New York City and Albany, depending on where the weather pattern hits. Last time with Hurricane Irene, again, going back to the most recent experience, the fears were New York City. Actually, the damage was much worse in upstate New York. So we'll be all over the state.
But you don't have a sense of that yet, though, as to what area might be hit.
This is very early. And, the weather forecasts that we rely on are much like what you see on the TV news at night, and it's amazing that they're not really as accurate as you would like in all circumstances. So we're taking the best projections that we can. We're planning prudently based on those projections. There's a lot of time between now and then. A lot can happen. There's a chance the storm makes a turn and goes out to sea, and that's it. There's a chance of some light rain. There's also a chance that it hits part of New Jersey primarily, and would then affect the New York City metropolitan area. So we want to make sure we're covered on all accounts. But as the time goes on, we'll have a better idea as we track the storm, and we will adjust accordingly also. We just wanted to make sure New Yorkers knew what we were doing at this time.
Does the uncertainty make it more difficult for utility crews to move around quickly depending on the area that's hit?
Well, you know, the preparation, I'd rather be prepared than unprepared. There is a cost to preparation also, literally a financial cost. We will call up crews. We will have crews on the ready from other states that will be coming to New York just in case to do repair. That's all at a cost, but we think at this point that's the more prudent course of conduct.
One more, guys, then we got to go.
Sir, it's difficult.
Thanks.
The size of the storm, could effectively affect many different people, making it harder for crews from out of state to get here because they're going to be spread so thin. Is that a fear of yours for the local?
Yeah, one of the, it's when the storm hits, it's too late, is the expression that they use. So the pre-deployment, the preparation, to the extent you need person power coming in, you need to do it now before the storm hits. But if you need to equipment deployed across the state, the time to do it is now. New York City, for example, we have a decision to make with the MTA. What do you do with the subways? What do you do with the buses? Do you move them to higher ground so they're protected, especially the subways? Those are decisions that we'll make over the coming days. But for much of this, the pre-deployment is getting the equipment and the people where you need it all across the state before the storm starts, and that's what we're trying to do.
Thank you.
And we've just been listening to Governor Cuomo speaking from Hop Hog, Long Island. Two big pieces of news coming out of that press conference just now. The first, he has declared a state of emergency in every single New York county. Now, this sounds a lot worse than what it really is. Basically, that move is to free up federal aid so FEMA and the National Guard can be on the ready to help out New York residents if Hurricane Sandy strikes somewhere near the state that we can feel the impact. The other big piece of information, he's going to have the chairman of the State Public Service Commission at LIPA headquarters in Long Island. Long Island had half of its 1.1 million customers without power after Tropical Storm Irene. So essentially what he's done with this move is he's given LIPA a state babysitter to make sure that they're complying with what they need to do and making sure they're sending out their crews to fix any power outages if that were to happen. Now, Connecticut Governor Dan Malloy briefed residents there earlier this afternoon. He says they have learned from lessons in the past but are preparing for the worst. Let's take a listen.
Worst case is 7 feet above. Worst case that we're currently talking about is 7 feet above normal tides. That's a pretty big variable. Something like that down in the Greenwich and Stamford area would very much mimic the early storm in the 1990s.
Governor Malloy from Connecticut. And now we also want to mention Governor Chris Christie of New Jersey is in transit back to New Jersey. So far, there are no planned press conferences. As soon as he plans on speaking, we will bring that to you live. Let's check in again with Storm Team 4 Steve Villanueva. Steve, you got a new track now?
We do. It looks like the computer models just came in, so I was analyzing the latest data, and the cone is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And what the computer models are now telling me, that we could have a strike anywhere from southern New Jersey all the way out towards the tip of Long Island and right around Rhode Island. So the cone is getting smaller, and it's been pushed back a little bit. It looks like the storm system will come ashore sometime early Tuesday morning or Tuesday afternoon. But nonetheless, here's what we're anticipating with this storm system. All right, so for the city, for Long Island, for coastal Connecticut, anywhere from 6 to 10 inches of rain, wind gusts of 40 to 70 miles per hour. We'll have moderate to severe coastal flooding. Keep in mind, Monday we have the full moon, so high tides will be above normal because of the full moon. Then you're going to get the winds coming in off the water, pushing the water ashore, and this will lead to moderate or even severe coastal flooding for Long Island and for portions of Connecticut, and power outages are likely. I live in Fairfield County. During Hurricane Irene, 800,000 people lost power in the state of Connecticut during Irene. So something like that could happen again. So be prepared. You may want to make a hotel reservation or something like that. You definitely want to have gas in your car, because if we have power outages, the gas stations may not work. So try to have a full tank of gas as you head into Monday and into Tuesday. All right, so other regions break down like this. For the Hudson Valley and for interior Connecticut, we're not going to see the storm surge because you're not close to the water, but you will also see 4 to 6 inches of rain. You will have 30 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts. We're also going to see flooding, not coastal flooding, but river flooding. With all of that water, it has to go somewhere, and it will slowly drain into your rivers and into your streams. And when that happens, the rivers don't flood right away. It actually takes days for the rivers to overflow their banks. So even though the storm system is coming in Monday, Tuesday, the rivers may not flood until Thursday or Friday because that's how long it takes for all the water to get in there. So that's something that we'll have to monitor. So if you live next to a river that tends to flood, try to have an evacuation plan because you may be affected. And also we're going to see widespread power outages because the winds are quite gusty and they're going to knock down the trees, which will knock down the power lines. Inland New Jersey, you're just like inland Connecticut and also upstate New York. We're going to have major flood threat, especially for some of those rivers that always tend to flood during these situations. 40 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts, lots of trees down, and widespread river and stream flooding. And then finally, for the Jersey Shore, if the storm system comes in anywhere from like southern New Jersey or down to the Delmarva, this is where we're going to have the worst coastal flooding. 6 to 10 inches of rain for you as well. Wind gusts of 40 to 75 miles per hour or even stronger because you're going to be closer to the center of the storm system. This will lead to severe coastal flooding and major beach erosion. This is a very powerful storm system, and the computer models are now in, and they're telling us that the cone is getting smaller, and the storm system can make landfall anywhere between southern New Jersey and the eastern tip of Long Island. And of course, we're going to work on your forecast, and coming up at 5 and 6 o'clock, Janice and I will be here to give you all of the latest information. In the meantime, let's toss it back over to Tom.
Steve, when Storm Team 4 briefed the newsroom early this morning, you guys were talking about the speed of Hurricane Sandy, and that's what you guys wanted to watch today. What can you tell us as the days progressed about the speed of Sandy?
Well, yesterday it was moving at a really fast clip. It was going at 20 miles per hour. Now it's slowed down. It is moving at 7 miles per hour. So this is going to let it sit over warmer waters. So that means it could start to intensify a little bit. It's a very weak Category 1 hurricane right now, but it could become a strong Category 1 later today. Then the system's going to start to move northward. That's when it's going to start to get very interesting. It's a tropical system, but the jet stream is diving down. The jet stream is going to absorb the energy from the hurricane, and it will become a hybrid storm system. So it's not going to be exactly tropical, it's not going to be exactly a nor'easter, but it's going to be a powerful storm system nonetheless. So whether it's tropical or non-tropical, it's just semantics. It's still going to be a strong storm system as it makes its way towards the area, which at this point in time, it looks like it should make landfall sometime early Tuesday morning or early Tuesday afternoon.
Steve, thanks so much. We're going to keep our eye on Hurricane Sandy. And stay with News 4 New York for the latest on the storm's track. We're going to have much more throughout the day, starting at 5 o'clock with the newscast, more on some of the models, the different tracks as well. We'll also make sure to log on to NBCNewYork.com. We're going to have the latest on all the tracks, what you need to know, the maps, if you live in Zone A in New York, if you need to evacuate, some of the places that have already ordered voluntary evacuations, Cape May counties. We're also going to have some of the radar as well, so make sure to log on to NBCNewYork.com because we will have the very latest. And then Janice Huff will be here starting at 5 o'clock with the latest on Hurricane Sandy. Now, just to recap a couple of things, Mayor Bloomberg saying right now, basically, status quo so far. They are watching and waiting. If you live in Zone A, Coney Island, near the shore in Staten Island, City Island, all the Rockaways, that part of the city, you don't have to evacuate just quite yet, but make sure you're monitoring the news. They're going to have another press conference around Saturday afternoon, maybe Saturday evening, to let people know. The other big question, if the sustained winds get to 39 miles per hour, and they very well could, then the MTA is going to suspend partial or complete service like they did during Tropical Storm Irene. So those are all the things we're watching, along with New York governor declaring a state of emergency to make sure they have those federal funds, help from FEMA and the National Guard. We hope to hear from Governor Chris Christie in the future as well. You can also track Sandy along with us, as we mentioned, on NBCNewYork.com. We'll have live radar, plus download our weather app on your smartphone and track it right from here. Ellen is next. We'll be right back here at 5 o'clock. Stay with us.